I have a few slides and I'll buzz through them. I'd like to just start by saying I got involved with a forensic think tank at Harvard Medical School about 10 years ago. And I realized that the law is about 100 years out of date with understanding undue influence. The law says if you're a minor, you can be unduly influenced or elderly with dementia, but everything else is a slippery slope. And so I did my doctoral work on using trafficking law, which is internationally recognized as a foundation. I took brainwashing models from the 50s from Robert Lifton, Margaret Singer, Edgar Schein, and I did the first quantitative study using my bite model of authoritarian control in an effort to create a scientific way of evaluating authoritarian mind control or brainwashing. So I always like to just ask my listeners, how would you know if you were under mind control? And because I only have 5 minutes, I won't pause 5 minutes. But asking a good question and waiting quietly as the person thinks is the key technique for helping someone who has been brainwashed. I'm jumping ahead. I was in a cult. That's what formed my framing. I was 19 years old at Queens College, was deceived by women flirting with me, and became a leader in the Moonies cult. They own the Washington Times Foundation, the single biggest purveyor of climate science denial. They're still very active. But I have lived experience. My family rescued me and deprogrammed me, and here I am 50 years later as a mental health professional. A lot of people don't know, but in the American Psychiatric Association's Diagnostic Statistical Manual, there's actually a category for brainwashing and mind control, and it's described as a dissociative disorder. And the easiest way that I can explain it to people is that the original Steve from Flushing, Queens, who was a conservative Jew, when I got programmed, I had a pseudo identity that was formed in the image of some young moon and the ideology. And this identity suppressed the real me. And I have a model that I've created to help unpack this based on the brainwashing theories. All of this is on my website, freedomofmind.com. But the key to my contribution is we need psychoeducation for all citizens from the bottom up to understand how do you discriminate ethical influence where it respects your uniqueness, your conscience, your creativity, your free will, versus your indoctrinated self that's based on a clone of the group and dependence and obedience on the group, and leaders that are healthy versus malignant narcissists, and healthy organizations where there's checks and balances and people are free to leave, and authoritarian cults that there's never a legitimate reason to leave. I have taught this for 7 days, but briefly, if you go to my website, freedomofmind.com, you can download the entire list of behavior control techniques, including controlling the environment, sleep, food, clothing, changing names. There's a laundry list. I've included extremist cults and pimps and traffickers as well. People need to understand that do not join, especially these religious authoritarian cults. They're deceived, they're manipulated, they're indoctrinated, as I was.
30
And there's
seconds.
many dimensions of this. Thought control includes simplistic ideology, black and white, us versus them, good versus evil. Thought-stopping techniques that the cult identity is taught to block any negative thoughts against the leader, the doctrine, or the policy. emotional manipulation, making the people feel very special, but also the universal mind control technique is phobia indoctrination, the installation of irrational fears that if you question the leader or leave the group, terrible things will happen. When we talk about gangs and extremist groups, it's not an irrational fear that they may come after you and try to kill you. So that's not a phobia. Uh, Simple graphic to describe that many cult members are on the fringes. They haven't a clue of what's going on inside of the group. And so it's really, really different. And Yanir taught me complex systems decades ago, and I started applying it to my work, helping people get out of cults. And what I learned is educating family members, friends, ex-members, clergy, whatever, and guiding them to interact by asking respectful, curious questions and empowering people to think and not attacking the group head on, but talking primarily with MAGA these days, talking about Chinese communist brainwashing or pimps and traffickers and how they recruit and indoctrinate people is the framework to then ask the person to go back in time to how their minds got hacked, to fill in the dots. So I know this, it's a very brief talk, but I think the solution is a complex system approach, identifying all the different authoritarian cults that are in the United States right now and around the world, as well as the dictatorships that I refer to as authoritarian cults that are manipulating and controlling these groups and utilizing ex-members and training them and deploying them. I also think there must be an AI way to multiply this, but this is just the taste. I've written 5 books. I have a course, and thank you for this opportunity.